Hi, everybody. Welcome back. This is Joe Moore. Today we have my friend Jennifer Espenscheid. How are you doing today? Beautiful. Yeah, this is going to be a fun one. I think we're going to go all over the map, which I'm going to really enjoy. And yeah, I love that we're able to do this in my office. And we just yesterday recorded for your podcast. What's it called? I I think it was probably one of the more in-depth podcasts about me and my kind of origins. So thank you for that. Yeah, I think a lot of people are going to be happy with that. Yeah. Um so let's um let's talk about like high level. What is your kind of like art, like what are you trying to do in art in your world right now? Mhm. 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 So it was interesting getting to meet your family the other day. I me being who I am, I'm always a little cautious and like I don't want to freak people out when I show up and people are like, "Oh, this is Joe. He does, you know, internet stuff." Or like, what do you do, Joe? It's like, all right. Here we go. And are you going to hate me or are you going to be cool? Most people are really cool. And like how it showed up with your family was you were just right into it. You're like, this is what Joe does. These are some of the people we know. And like, it was really, really cool to see that, not only with your dad, but with your kids. And it was like super open. Yeah. Hmm. Mm. Right. Hmm. That's great. And I was immediately able to jump into the chronic pain conversation, like the Psychedelics and Pain Association and Remax Therapeutics. And I'm like, here's how that rolls. And really cool questions back, really smart questions back. So I was so thankful for that. So that's a cool thing you've been able to cultivate. Like, I assume you were the one that started these conversations. Hmm.
what I think or what I believe.
Mm-hmm.
And so they can take whatever part of that they want. And in some areas like psychedelics, I happen to be for the last, at least 15 years. My kids weren't asking when they were 3. But once they're old enough to ask, and certainly my dad, very curious. So in the family, I'm the one that can open those gateways of, yeah, creativity, healing, all the things. I mean, it's been, the number one therapist for.
Mm. So I don't want to misphrase it, but we were chatting yesterday or the day before about how psychedelic kind of first showed up for you.
Mm-hmm.
Can you kind of share that story?
Sure. I had I will say dabbled, in the wilderness like my first year of college or something with mushrooms. A lot of things were slightly accidental, and so I do feel it was much more of a drinking culture. And in high school, I would say, looking back, that was not, my highest self, pretty silly.
Mm-hmm.
So where I grew up, there was a bit of psychedelics, but it was much more drinking,
Mm-hmm.
which never agreed with my body. So really, it was after I had kids and kind of had my exodus and went about not even reinventing myself, just being myself. And one of my best friends invited me into Burning Man. And so that was my first, it's not a festival, but it was my first festival or burn of any kind. And it was like I hit the ground running.
Mm.
And so, it was all the psychedelics. It wasn't overly thoughtful.
Mm.
And then from there, it became less, um, less a thing to do with a bunch of people in a setting, and then more of a inward journey as different things happened either to my body or to my psyche. So it's been a really interesting exploration. The first real deep dive into psychedelics was ayahuasca. And once again, just, the universe bringing people together. So I could do it in a very small group, really, um, in my hometown. And that just blew the lid off everything
Mm-hmm.
in terms of understanding my connection with everything, and then also being able to I one of the things, of course, that we always do when we're in that kind of space is how am I going to share this with people?
Mm-hmm.
And through visual art, that can be so. Then there was the whole visual component of that, and then an oracle deck,
Mm-hmm.
different things like that. But it was, I would have to say, in the beginning, mostly more cosmic, more fun, and then it became about the work
Mm-hmm.
and about healing physical pain, which is, driven by my decisions, and probably more psychological pain.
Right. And you've been a chronic pain sufferer for a while.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's dig into art first. So, were you always an artist? Like, were you always kind of creating things, or did that come later?
Yeah, yeah, definitely always creating. So I was very lucky. I was born in South Dakota on a ranch, so we made everything.
Mm-hmm.
So the my viewpoint is that life is art, and if I lose track of that, then it's maintenance and drudgery. But we, made our own food. We raised our own animals. My dad built everything. My mom was an artist.
Mm-hmm.
My great uncle, I think, was a painter. So there were always tools everywhere. Anything you wanted to build, you know, you could either borrow them or dad would hand them to you, and then you would kind of futz around learning.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe hurt yourself along the way. And so I think it was, I didn't know for quite a while that there were specific jobs,
Mm-hmm.
we handled, I thought we did everything. So I think the creative process was just always there. And probably it was my mom that through her.
Let's sit tight for a second. Somebody mentioned there is an audio issue. That's not great. Um, let's try to fix that right away. Um,
That's so nice that yeah you can find out.
mm, 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 mm. So I figured out how to do two cameras. Let's see if I figured out how to do two mics. Um, yeah, let's see. So,
Oh,
if
with
you want to keep going in here,
oh okay. I'll just set that up to the side.
yeah,
Bleep bleep bleep.
maybe we can
How's that?
just start about like your how you started creating.
So we just do that.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Okay, I'm gonna sit by you. Um, yeah. So I think from childhood, it was kind of creating everything. It was fixing things. It was also a bit of how to stretch the dollar, how to be creative with money, how to um, if you wanted to do something on the ranch, if you wanted to move a building, there were several ways of doing that. So how just thinking creatively about everything. Uh, Creative about scheduling. There are hundreds of animals to feed. There are these things you want to do. There's the things you have to fix. So I think learning to like stretch time or um, be excited to, have to get up super early in order to get everything done. So I would I would say across the board it was really like the perfect petri dish for an artist to grow up in. And so if there was something in your mind that you wanted to do or 20 things you wanted to do in a day, you would imagine it first, right? And then so I think I just saw that and that was the natural way of doing things. Do you think this is good?
Yeah, it sounds pretty great.
Okay,
Um,
cool.
so yeah, that's awesome. So like this idea of um making everything and like having that kind of really pragmatic approach to creativity
Mhm.
is you're like, oh, have to do it, have to build this, so
Right.
let's figure it out. And
Mhm.
like nothing's impossible, right? Like
Right.
you just have to try and try to learn, which is
Mhm.
like an interesting position to be in. It's like, what did you call it the other day? Little House on the Prairie.
Right. And if
Yeah.
you want help, you can have it. However, you're gonna have to wait for it, right? And
Hmm.
and and not, that may not be a bad thing. My personality just would probably, if at all possible, I would just do it myself, right? And so, yeah, the just getting it done in order to do the next thing that you want to do, and then just create. If there was a hiccup, knowing that there were like 20 ways, 20 different workarounds, and coming from people who just did that naturally, I think that's why it's easier for me, maybe.
Hmm.
It doesn't matter if you screw it up, really. I mean, if it's a building, yes, or if it's, something you're going to get hurt, of course. But we try to minimize that.
So we first met at my first burn, and
Hmm.
you made this like really interesting metal sculpture with like gorgeous LED art. And
Yeah.
I was like, okay, like this is an amazing piece,
Hmm.
but like I was coming at it going, there's no way one person made this. So it was like kind of a collaborative piece, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was, I think, really the first piece where I decided I believed in it. And so, I didn't worry too much about how I was going to fund it because I wanted it anyway. And then just kind of trusted, sort of like the Oracle deck, that each component that I needed, I'd figure out something would happen. I'd meet someone and just kind of trusted it. So I knew I wanted it to have this, the sacred geometry. I knew I wanted it to have a heart that did all these things. And then the symbolism of wings, and of course, using, the base and that sacred geometry. So I kind of drew it I dreamed it up at on flights. A lot of things happen. So at altitude, I think also I'm sequestered to a seat, and so I definitely utilize that time for. I think the veil is thinner up there, and so the ideas came in, and then just decided, to be public about it. So it was just a small Facebook group, and it kind of grew, and I just shared everything that came up and everything I was learning. And then my good friend Bry is in lighting, and so I was paying him to do the lighting commitments, and then became good friends with Carrie and Chad, who you met at the Burn too, and he is a retired Google programmer. So he was messing with the made the little circuit board, and it made it much more robust for me, enthusiastic wise, because I had you're collaborating. And
Hmm.
so it's not just your own enthusiasm, although as the leader of any project, it's up to you to kind of maintain the fire and stoke it. It was fun because there were fuel coming from other sources, so that was pretty cool.
Hmm. And I assume you've had like a couple other collaborative projects like that before, right?
Absolutely. So pretty much anything I can design. I learned early on I love having my hands in all of it, yet it's going to turn out better if I have people who can fabricate things or are really good at certain components of it. So my friend JP in Milwaukee is probably my number one go-to. He's very, I'll come in with what I've sketched for a client, and I'll just have all these ideas, and it'll end up weighing like 10,000 pounds, and he'll be the practical one that'll, you know, zero us in, come up with lighter materials, help with the lighting. So now it's whatever I design. There's so much talent in Milwaukee
Hmm.
close to me, which is great. It's not really a Burning Man community yet at all. So I think I am a bit envious of like the collaboration that might be in, San Francisco, for instance, where you have so many people to help with different components, but I have that available to me. So
Yeah,
it's great.
that's awesome.
Yeah. And collaboration is when you have those trusted people. I mean, we collaborate on events now, right? So we have people that are bringing lighting. I can bring visuals. We have ridiculous DJs. You're one of them. So it's these things that just it seems like it's magic. I guess it is, but we're the creators. We create the art. We create the events, and I believe life is like that.
Hmm.
Like each day can be if I'm not feeling numbed out, if I'm really in it and aware, it's just as magic. You can stretch time, you can make space, you can all the things.
Yeah, and I think it's like an interesting antidote to um kind of like commercial rave culture, right? And
Mm-hmm.
like just continually being sold experiences.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very different dynamic from creating it,
Mm-hmm.
especially with loved ones. It's a very different deal.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel really blessed to have that with friends like you.
Mm-hmm.
And um, the idea is how can we also teach others how to do it?
Yeah. Yeah, it's that I think the invitation to participate, which is one of the things about a burn, right? It's we are all asked to participate in some way. And taking often, and that's one of the reasons I'm kind of going into creative consulting, is that people say they aren't creative, which is like the worst thing you can say. As humans, we're intrinsically creative. We're always, making and designing and engineering. And so making it a point, like our friend, the reason we know each other, Aaron Wilcox, he has some that magic of knowing the right moment when to send the text that pushes me over the edge, that's gotten me to some places that have changed my life. So I I think your point is it's really important to remember keep inviting your friends, identifying that little bit of magic or what someone is getting into, And then you have a stage, which might be an event or it might be a project, and inviting someone, hey, that's another thing that's really fun. Would you write a piece of music for this sculpture? We'll have audio in it, and then you bring in a whole nother sense. So the network of our friends, and also, even if they're not a friend yet, once you ask and you're collaborating on something like that, it's a vision quest, it's a shared dream.
I was just thinking about that idea of making music for a piece.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, oh, that's interesting. I wish I had those skills. And I was like, wait a
Wait, you
second.
do have those skills.
And I was like, if I pull up some of my software, I can make some really interesting, weird soundscapes at the very least. And
How about a scarab piece, Joe?
right, exactly. Yeah. So we
Yeah.
got to do that, I guess.
Yeah, no, I got it. We're
Um,
already collaborating. And
hmm
it's interesting, I think, not there's a lot of benefit to being the master of your own destiny, in terms of, you I work for people, you work with people, yet we we're our own boss. And so over time I've noticed that I am mostly um, collaborating with everyone in some way. I collaborate with my kids on meals, or coming up, with a road trip. We're collaborating on this whole weekend. Like, it's a major orchestration, everything that's going on this week. And oh my God, I'm really close to the camera. But it's so yeah, it is, I think, pretty much when I step back and look at my life right now, I feel really blessed to be around so many creative people not doing the same thing. And that's something that I think is dangerous, when people think they need to be a painter or a graphics person or a DJ in order to be creative. I mean, I need people who are creative with numbers and schedules, and we all have our gift. And then when people bring that beautiful gift together, I don't know, what
hmm
would that be like? It's just,
hmm
it's like a curry. You're bringing all these perfect ingredients together, and at a certain temperature, it all just changes.
hmm
And it's this new, completely beautiful thing you can't separate out.
Mm, it's a special
Curry.
blend.
Yeah, special blend.
um, yeah, so I guess let's name a couple things. Yeah, we're taking you to your first fish show, which is going to be fun.
Yeah.
And then also, you're going to be helping with the crab car in the 4th of July parade.
Mm-hmm.
That's going to be awesome.
Mm-hmm.
And then, yeah, today building the crab a little bit, which is going to be dope. And then, if anybody doesn't know, I'm I'm a crab dad. Big
You're
crab
the crab
car on
dad.
Instagram. Big crab car, crab with a K, 'cause it's not a real crab, is what we call it. And I can check out that thing there. And this is going to be in the Main Street Parade in Breckenridge. And for 4th of July is kind of a big deal in this town. I guess most American towns, but this
Mm.
one's crazy here. Um,
Everyone's there.
oh my God.
Everyone takes part.
Yeah, and I'm apparently DJing for the town for like 6 hours, which is
So that'll be fun. I'll jump back and forth between crab and DJ, and probably get some visuals. But it's interesting, right? When you're a part of it and you're participating, then I'm engaged in a very real way. There's a whole nother layer when I'm thinking of something. I'm like, how can I record this to present it later in visuals? Or when you're helping, set something up, it's a different level of aliveness than just consuming, I guess,
hmm
if that makes sense.
yeah, yeah. And I do you know the artist Alan Moore, like
Mm-mm.
comic book artist from Britain? He did some really interesting stuff. He's like I like Promethea that he did and The Watchmen.
Okay, I've
And
heard of the Watchmen.
yeah, they what did he say? He has a ratio for consuming media to creating media,
Ah,
and he's like 8 to 1, I think is his ratio. But he's a full-time artist, right? So
right.
he kind of has like a little bit of privilege there in saying that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But I think he's saying something clever around like who's shaping what's happening in here.
Right.
Um,
Well, and that's a definite decision and practice. If you're consuming and getting your information for the external world, a lot of times you will, I don't want to say waste time, but you're spending time on an energy because your attention is everything. So if that attention is turned inward, I think that's when we can be more creative and um, certainly have make more of a, I don't know, I feel more energized as opposed to depleted.
yeah, I think that's fair. Um, right. There's more, maybe even more spaciousness in a
Mm-hmm.
way, right?
Mm-hmm.
When we're not just crowded out by soap operas or whatever people are watching, you know. Um, I had this funny joke about TV recently. It seems like at least after 2 seasons, every TV show turns into a soap opera.
Right.
So people reflect on that a little bit, whatever that means to you. And I had this funny family joke that happened at one point. My sister-in-law rolls into my brother and goes, "Oh yeah, my grandma." He's watching something. My grandma used to watch soap operas too. He's like, "All right,
Ah.
I'm just turning it off now. I'm
Mhm.
fine." And he's a kind of manic creative too. He's got like
Okay.
all the things, kiln, mad electronic skills, like all the things in
Yeah.
big barn he can work in, right? So it's like when he's not doing that, he's being radically creative.
Right.
You know,
It's an interesting balance that he can.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Um,
Yeah. It's coming at us from so many angles now. I guess my filter is pretty strong,
hmm
so I try to know what it is I'm doing. Well, like if I'm going on, fill in the blank, YouTube or social media or anything, I have a purpose, and I try to get in and I try to get out. Um, because it can dull me. It's exciting too. But then I know it's taking away from the things that are, so there's it's like a funnel. There's constantly things coming in, whether it's from source or um, I do think I do think most things are coming from other places, and the emptier I can be, the quicker they can come through, and the more comfortable I am. If there's a backlog, if I'm if I'm doing more watching and consuming, then that means I'm not in flow and I get uncomfortable. I can get anxious. I feel blocked. And so I've it's just much more comfortable if the magic can continue. I guess it's magic. The manifestation, okay, if this is a good idea and it's going to be actualized, or if there's a deadline, it needs to keep flowing. And then when that stops or it's plugged up a little bit, sometimes that, is by the other things you have to do in the day, but I don't need to add more to that or clog it with things that aren't, I'll just say, in the best interest of manifestation.
hmm Yeah, and that like emptiness idea is like it's big in kind of the transcendental meditation space. Like David Lynch would kind of say things like that,
Okay.
and yeah, some of the other people who are deep in that space. It's like how do we become open to that creativity,
Mm-hmm.
um, and that flowing through, because like monkey mind's always there taking up space.
Mm-hmm.
You're like, can we get a little quieter, buddy?
Mm-hmm.
And then like interesting things come as a
Yeah.
result. Um,
And I
yeah.
think I think setting that up, I've found in the morning, that's the time when you're the blankest in like a good way. Somebody's here.
You can hear my dog, everybody. You're welcome.
He's agreeing with us. Morning is the best
Oh
time.
my
But yeah,
God.
keeping that flow and distraction away. I know if I set up in the morning, we were talking yesterday about kind of creating a container, whether it's a Merkaba or other practice for energy. That really helps me as a filter for everything. So, it's not about negative or positive energy. It's like, okay, this is the energy I want for the day. This is the flow I want for the day. And then I can come back to that quicker if I have that set up in the morning. And then there's something about that those first few hours. I would never dare to even turn on my phone and ruin that.
Hmm.
Those creative times are, that's when your 10 minutes of writing is going to equal like 3 hours later.
Hmm.
It's just, for me, it's the magic time. I think other people can create late at night. I tend to be kind of a zombie then, but
Hmm.
yeah.
And how about like, so, most people wake up every day
Mm-hmm.
and,
If you're lucky.
yeah, and, um, you know, psychedelics aren't an everyday thing.
Mm-hmm.
They're a sometimes snack,
Mm-hmm.
as Cookie Monster says. And like, I'm kind of curious, like, so how, like, do you think it's like a different window into your creative process than mornings?
I think I think you access the same levels. I think a psychedelic experience, which I try to do like a deep and mindful one every season, you will draw on forever. But you're accessing the same things. So I think that I'll just call it fuel or insights or visions or connections. That's going to, if you do morning breath work, you're tapping right back into it.
The
It's
the experience as a muse.
mm-hmm. Yeah, I try to write a bit as I'm coming out just because there's so much. Just like scribble down at least outlines to come back to and reflect on. And then often I won't fully understand what what those were about. And then over the course of, months or even a year, I'll be like, oh, that's what's happening. Or a client will come through and I'll already know the answer. I'll have already seen the painting. So it's interesting. I think in those spaces, there is no. We're working in space time instead of time space. So I have access things clearly that I need in the future, and it's also solved things from my past. So it's wild. I mean, you're just dealing in a different. Yeah, you're dealing in space time instead of time space. If that makes sense, or
Um,
just trust me.
yeah, trust
Well,
you.
what do you think? I mean, have you
I like it
had
as
that
a
feeling?
muse. I like this
Mm-hmm.
muse concept, and it's simpler for me to model.
Okay.
You don't have to get into a dimensionality in any way.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, so it's like you're creating a sort of new well, and um, the well is something that you can keep pulling from over
Mm-hmm.
time.
Mm-hmm.
And, if you're lucky and you do it skillfully, you can have a few of these things, maybe 20. I think 100's maybe too much, especially
Mm-hmm.
in a short period of time. But, quarterly is probably really appropriate if this is the kind of process you're going through.
Right.
And even for
Because
spiritual practice too.
yes, definitely. And I think to your point of if you're spending a lot of time in the psychedelic space, then I personally would come up with that backlog of,
Hmm.
I need this to start moving through me. So having, one foot, I always try and think of it as a bridge and having balance between those two legs. Like I want this foot in this physical world I chose, at some point to be in a body. I now embrace it. I don't try to escape it.
Hmm.
And so I like your idea of a well that now we can see into, and pull up a muse anytime we need it from
Hmm.
that. But then I need to transfer that into, I guess, the physical reality, the physical realm.
Hmm.
And so it comes from, that vision. And then the interesting part is how it comes through us, usually through hands, you know, into the physical plane.
I had this so this is the only time I did like drug assisted psychotherapy.
Mm-hmm.
I had a ketamine assisted psychotherapy session um, or at the very least, it was supervised by a clinician who was really well trained.
Mm.
And uh, the thing that came up for me was like a lot of hand sensation, and like
Mm.
these things have been through a lot, and they do a lot, and like I don't, not all that profound of an experience, but it
Mm-hmm.
was there's this like kind of classic LSD thing where you can just get like lost in how amazing your hands are.
Absolutely.
Like what an invention.
Yeah,
Yeah. Is it do you have anything about hands that come forward for you?
for sure. I think usually in each journey, because it's easy to zoom away and be amazed, and I try to bring it back to the body. So there have been different times in the mirror. I mean, oh my God, just different body parts, feet. Thank you. Like, are you kidding me? And then the hands. There's always a good amount of um, fascination, adoration, I guess, appreciation, and then there will be, of the physical body, and then also I will be directed, maybe it's my higher self or inner intelligence directing my hands to actually manipulate different areas of my body, like self-healing, self acupressure points. So
Move
it's
the
almost
lymph
like,
nodes.
yeah, they're directed, and you take that. I mean, you have that forever, that knowledge that you are your own healer, and we possess, it's through the tones in our voice. We can tune ourselves. We can, so all that I have access through the work with psychedelics.
Mm.
And there's other ways, of course. But I think that that's really, in 4 hours, the information that you can begin to wrap your head around. But yeah, the hands, right, are the extension. I'm not sure how it works, but there's the vein that comes all the way down to our ring finger. So yeah, these are the extensions of our heart and our mind.
Mm.
It's ridiculous. Thank you. Mm-hmm.
And what do you think it is about art and creativity that's like so meaningful to you?
I've considered, and lately, because of a couple physical challenges, when I can't move much and I can't be making, and it bothers me. And so I've done some work around, is that ego? Does that does that make me feel worthy and accomplished to produce produce shows, produce physical things, produce things that others appreciate? Or, and as it turns out, it's is it because it feels good? Like it's an energy. I really think it's an energy that needs to keep moving. Otherwise, there's stagnation and blocking. So I've tried to just unzip that and let the ego part of it go and realize, like, this actually is my understanding of, like, my dharma here in this life is to inspire through visuals. So of course I'm going to feel better when that's flowing through me and I can show, or I can see it, and then we're feeling things. Like, I did a series last year for my do like an annual show. It's called Resonance, and it was abstracts of um hormones and body chemicals, like, dopamine and melatonin and all these things, like visuals of how it feels. And then the hope was, when you look at it, it produces those in you,
Mm.
which was pretty cool. Like, even just as a concept, even if you didn't feel it, but if you're looking at this, this cascading, um, calming thing that helps you maybe feel what melatonin would help you feel, like this calming, you're winding, just exploring things like that, how art can actually make your chemistry change. So now you're working from visual and you're creating an emotion, which is creating the chemical. So this works, like, probably the most epic example of this would be Android Jones, where it's so all encompassing, right? And and people who have that art or commission art, they get it. you're seeing that, whether it's a piece that's illuminated or a piece that's moves or it's just a painting. It's never the same in any light. And if it's evoking something in you, it's a meditation every time you see it. So you're reinforcing a chemistry in your body. And I think that's incredible. Like a symbol, because we're meaning makers. We talked about this at length. If there is a symbol that has meaning for you and you can see it every day, you are programming yourself in an aware way,
Hmm.
as opposed to just seeing kind of a bunch of crap. So that's another way art is life. Like if we surround ourselves by things that are meaningful to us or from pleasing times to us or created specifically for us in a certain way, that's a pretty, I mean, that's muse right there. It's constant. So you're constantly and in an aware way infusing your life without having to do any extra work.
Hmm.
I like stacking.
uh, all my comments about art. It's so okay. Like it's such an interesting thing. We can put so much time and effort into our art,
Mm-hmm.
and often it's purely like, okay, we're doing it and we like it and we love it, and we know there's going to be this moment where we show it to some people.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes, not
Mm-hmm.
always. And I'm thinking about like circus performers, for instance. Like, holy hell, the amount of work they do.
Right.
Or like acrobats, like what the hell? That's amazing. And
Mm-hmm.
like, thank you for your gift of doing so much work. And
Mm-hmm.
like, your your financial reward's often so small in like in a lot of these artistic arenas, and because it's really um, like you said earlier, it's like the dharma situation, but it's almost like a
Mm-hmm.
compulsion. I have to do this thing.
Right.
Yeah. And it's like this is the art you were drawn to and you're going to do it,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah, and it's that if you block it,
Hmm.
it's going to, I mean, if you block something here, it's going to create unease or dis-ease or, more is coming in and you're, it's just uncomfortable. So I think